Hi everyone, I'm Reading with Jack and today I'm here with my February wrap-up and March to be read pile. I can't believe we're already in March, that's so crazy. This year is going so fast and that kind of scares me because my exams are coming up sooner and sooner and I'm obviously stressed about them, but I'm not here to talk about exams today. I'm here to talk about the books that I've read. I read 3.5 books in February, and I'm going to read around 4 books in March. So let's get going and let's talk about these books. The first book that I read is the one that I half read because I'd read most of it in January, and it is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, which is a collection of short stories, and I gave this one a 3 out of 5. It's basically a collection of different fairy tales that are retold in different ways. Sometimes they have adult content which is a little bit contrived in my opinion, and I'm just trying to kind of say what it says in the back really. It says that they're absorbing, it's dark and sensual and fantastic, and I do definitely think that it does have elements of that. I personally didn't love it. I have actually read it before, but I reread it for English literature, and for some reason it just seemed contrived. I didn't think that it had to be the way it was all the time. I felt like sometimes it was a little bit over the top, and I think that Angela Carter did this to shock the readers, and it definitely shocks you. And personally for me, some of the stories in here are horrible and really, really intriguing actually, and I am really interested to analyse them in class because I think that everyone has very strong opinions on them, which is definitely a good thing. I do enjoy the use of metaphor, the use of symbolism. I think she has a lot of different kind of things going throughout all of the books, different motifs, for example. It is definitely a very interesting book. It's not one that I personally enjoyed reading loads, and I probably didn't enjoy it as much the second time around, but it definitely shocks you. And if you're looking for a book that you're going to have strong opinions on this, I absolutely guarantee that this will be one of them. The second book that I read this month was a review copy of A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I read this on my Kindle, and I'd like to say thank you so much to Bloomsbury for sending me this because it was absolutely amazing, amazing, amazing. 4.5 out of 5 because it was nearly perfect. It's basically a Beauty and the Beast fairy tale retelling. I'll talk a little bit about it more when I do my review, hopefully within the next few weeks. And I absolutely loved the characters in particular. Feyre is the main character. She's very strong but also very realistic, which I really liked. She was believable. Also, Tamlin was an amazing character. I'm sure everyone's going to love reading about him whenever you get around to reading the book. I believe it comes out in May. I think it's on the 5th of May. That date comes into my head. The writing was beautiful as well. So many amazing, amazing descriptions. It was really precise and poignant. I absolutely love Sarah J. Maas's writing style. I also thought the plot was really well done. I thought the pacing was great because even though it was a little bit slow at the beginning, I felt like that was necessary to kind of build up into this fantasy world, which was so epic and so intriguing. I just wanted to learn more and more and more, and I loved the book overall. It was one of my favourite books of the year so far, even though I've not even read many this year so far, but it was a very good book, and you really must read it as soon as it comes out. The next book I read was another reread for English literature. It is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I've now read this about 5 different times, I think about 5 times anyway, and I really love it every time. I think the symbolism is great, I think the metaphor, the story has a great sense of beauty. I don't particularly think a lot happens, to be completely honest. It is quite slow, but I don't think a lot needs to happen. I think the way that it's structured, the way that it's put together and what does happen is really fantastic and it's really poignant. And I absolutely love this. I think it's a beautiful read. It's one that I'm rereading for my resit exam. Hopefully the exam will go better than last time. And I really do love it, and I do love writing about it. I think it's a very interesting book. The 1920s American culture is great to read about. I definitely think it's a very realistic and believable representation. So if you haven't read this yet, I think you definitely should. It's definitely a very big, famous and important American classic, so definitely get around to it if you haven't read it yet. The final book that I read in February is one of my favourite authors. It is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I have read this a lot before, but I had to reread it again for English literature for the resit exam, which I think is in May, so that's kind of cropping up quite quickly. I'm very scared about that, but I loved this book. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, and I thought that it wasn't as good as the first time, and I've always felt like this when I've reread it. There's a very shocking event that happens in chapter 7, and it's a horrible event, and it's very emotional to read and terrifying. The first time you read it, it really shocks you, and I think the second time around you know it's coming, so you're not as shocked about it. But I definitely felt like the second time around, and obviously numerous times that I've read it now, I've picked up on the second half of the book a lot more and understood it more, because I always felt like the second half of the book wasn't as good, but now I really understand about it in the search for redemption and everything with the main character Amir. I really think it's a beautiful book. It's so good, very, very emotional. I think everyone would have strong opinions on this actually, and I think most people really like it when they read it. So if you are looking for a very emotional book that's quite cultural, with Afghanistan culture in particular and references to 9/11 bombings, I think that you would like this book, so definitely give it a go. So now let's move on to my March to be read pile. I'm not sure how many books I'm going to get through. I'm going to put 4 books on my to be read pile, but I'm very busy at the moment revising for exams and preparing for everything, so I have no idea how it's going to go, but I'm going to try my best. I will try and read some books, and the first one I'm going to read is a reread, again for English literature. At the moment I seem to be rereading for English all of the time, but unfortunately that's just how it is, and I do like the book, so it's not really a bad thing. The first one is Wuthering Kites by Brontë. I did put this on my February to be read pile, but I never got around to it, and I'm very excited to read it. I feel like every time I read it I enjoy it more, I kind of understand things more, particularly with the characters. I think they're all quite horrible, but I understand them more every time I read it, which is definitely important, and I think some of the descriptions in this are amazing, particularly the kind of gothic descriptions of the setting, the gothic descriptions of the characters' personalities. I think they're very deep and dynamic and really, really fascinating to read. I'm excited to get around to this, and I'm hoping that I will read it in the first half of the month. I think it's probably going to take me a little bit longer than the other books this month, because I think it has quite a slow style. You have to really take your time with it, as you do with a lot of classics. So that is the first one I'm going to be rereading. The second one I'm going to be rereading is a play. It is The White Devil by John Webster, again for English literature. To be completely honest, I don't think I enjoyed the reading experience of this book because the language is so complicated. And I think in plays in general, you don't enjoy them when you're reading them as much. I definitely think there's something very special when you watch them, but sometimes when you read them, it doesn't have that special something. And I personally actually really enjoy this play. I think that it's interesting to analyse, so I think you have to read the whole thing and then think about it more. It's not something that is enjoyable to read, in my opinion. It's not something you'd sit down and relax and read, but it's a very interesting concept, and I really enjoy analysing it in English literature, so hopefully I will enjoy rereading it. The next one is another play. It's a French play, and it is Le Misanthrope by Molière. This is one of my favourite French plays. It's amazing and so enjoyable to read. I actually think I have everything when I read this book. I really love the characters, I love the plot, I think it's really interesting, and the reason why I'm actually rereading this is for my French A-level. For my speaking exam I had to pick a book or a play or a film, and I have to analyse that and do a short presentation on it, so I chose to do this one because I love it. It's really interesting. Hopefully the speaking exam will go okay. It's on the 8th of May, so I still have a little bit of time to prepare. I just wanted to reread it before the exam, just to kind of solidify my opinions on it. The final one that I'm going to read this month is called Changes, and it's by J.M. Colhoun, and I don't think that's the right pronunciation, but however you say it. This is not one for English literature. Hooray, I'm actually changing things up. It's actually just one that I want to read for fun. I was sent it in February by the publishers Austen Macaulay to read and review. I actually talked about it in my February book haul, which I'll link down below in the description, and I'm really excited to read this actually. It was the one that really caught my eye the most, and I'm just going to talk about a few things on the back. It basically talks about time travelling really, and the idea of the 19th century, the 18th century, roaring 20s, the 40s USA, and different rock stars and stuff. It sounds really intriguing actually. I really want to do some time travelling in books, so I think this is definitely going to give me the opportunity to do that, and I'm very excited to hopefully get around to reading it this month. So everyone, that is it for my February wrap up and March to be read pile. I hope it was enjoyable and interesting. Definitely let me know if you've read any of these books down below in the comments, or if you're planning to read them. Also let me know what you read in February and what you're planning to read in March. I would be really excited to hear.